Welcome to the Tough Decisions Network for Entrepreneurs. I'm Dennae Handford, and my wife, Dennae, and I interview successful people sharing stories behind tough decisions that they've had to make along their journey as an entrepreneur. On the podcast with us today is Chris Lombardi. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Dan. I'm glad to be here.
We are looking forward to chatting with you for a few minutes today, and we would love for you to get us started by just telling our audience a little bit about your background, who you are, and where your focus is right now as an entrepreneur.
Sure. I'm a lawyer by trade. I went to law school, graduated in 2008. I went into real estate right after law school, and this was, when the market was collapsing. And after 2 years of working, I decided that I wanted to be on my own and wanted to buy real estate. So my brothers and I teamed up, and we started buying single-family homes, renovating them, and we're now kind of transitioning into multifamily properties. So we have about 120 units under management, another 200 or so that we're developing, and our focus is to get into bigger and better stuff.
So I want you to kind of, start us off by talking about a tough decision that you've had to make along your journey as an entrepreneur that did not have that good of an outcome. So start us off with the bad stuff, right? Let's start with the negative, and then dive into some of the lessons that you learned through that as well. Because I feel like as entrepreneurs, we sometimes, wade into all those successes and the good stuff, but a lot of times diving into some of those bad outcomes is really where we can really help each other out as entrepreneurs.
Sure.
And reducing the learning curve and really learning some of those lessons.
When I think about the mistakes that I've made in business, the biggest one that I continue to kick myself over is a deal that I missed out on. This was back in, I'd say, maybe 2011. It was a 30-unit property. It was in a Class A neighborhood. I love the neighborhood. I love the property. It's where we were investing. And it was for sale by a company that is a huge real estate firm. They own, I think, 10, 20,000 units, and these guys knew what they were doing. And this property was renting their units for about $1,200 a month. And I'm studying it, and we ended up putting in an offer of $3 million on the property. It ended up selling for $3.1 million. And the way I analyzed it, I was assuming I could raise rents a little bit to maybe $1,400 a month. And my brother kept pushing me, Chris, you got to go for it. Like, we got to, make sure we get this property. But I assumed that because these guys were so good at what they did and they had such a big company, I assumed, what makes me think that I'm going to really be able to raise the rents that much more than what these guys were able to get. And it turns out the guys who ended up buying it raised the rents to close to $2,000 a month. And this is back in 2011. And today, I'm sure that property is worth maybe $8 million at least. So that was, I think, the biggest mistake that I ever made. And, my brothers were pushing me to get this property. I just didn't think that, we were going to be able to get that much because of who these people were. And, maybe had it been a mom and pop seller or somebody who, didn't seem that sophisticated, it would have changed the way I valued the property. But I think, I cut myself short, and it's one thing that I've learned in the future. We're all human. We all make mistakes. We're not perfect in everything that we do. And these guys, as good as they were at developing properties and managing properties, I think this property was just too small for them, and they didn't pay any attention to it. And I didn't really consider that when I was putting together the numbers. I just thought, the numbers look like we can get more, but I just didn't want to have that much of an ego and say that I'm that much better than these guys, or I can raise the rents that much more than what these guys are getting. And that was the biggest mistake I think I've ever made in investing.
Well, I think it's also a fine balance too that you have to walk, because you have to walk the fine line of looking at the numbers and not speculating, because once you start to get into the speculation phase, that's when it gets really, really high risk. Mm-hmm. And it sounds to me like you probably weighed those options out, and you weighed it, and you were basically saying, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. And at that point, it would be speculation. When you were looking at that property, did you do a comp analysis in the area to see, if it was possible to raise it more, or what was your analysis like in that situation?
I did. I looked at what other properties were going for. There wasn't that many properties that were within, I would say, walking distance to this one. So I was looking at properties that were a little farther away from the downtown area. This property was like right in the middle of Main and Main in one of the towns that we invested along the main line. And I was looking at properties a little further away saying, okay, these guys are getting 1,400. These guys are getting, 1,350 a unit. And this property, I know we can get that because it's in a better location, but I just didn't know how much more we can get than that. And I didn't want to, assume that I can get more without knowing for sure. And so I just, I was conservative as possible in my underwriting, and that's kind of what hurt us.
Chris, is there anything that you have changed in the way you analyze from this experience so that you won't miss out on a deal like this again?
You know what? It's really about using your judgment and you're not worrying about who these other people are. It's all about going with your gut. And, if your gut's telling you, this property is worth more, then, go with it. If your gut's telling you this is a bad deal, then go with it. But yeah, I just don't worry about who these other people are that I'm working with.
So let's shift a little bit here and talk about a tough decision that you had to make along this journey as an entrepreneur that had a really good and positive outcome, or maybe even an outcome that was better than you had expected, and some of the lessons you learned through that.
I was thinking about that. And, I think the toughest decision that I had to make through all this is quitting my job. I knew I wasn't going to be in the job forever, and I knew it was something temporary. I wanted to learn, once I got out of law school, I really wanted to learn the business and how to run a business. So I purposely got this job for that reason. I was doing corporate liquidations in New York City. We were basically buying up bankrupt companies after the market crashed, and we were liquidating all their assets. And I was on the real estate side, selling off retail assets for these bankrupt retailers. And after a couple of years, I started realizing, we're just selling these properties for so cheap that it just didn't make any sense. And that's when I was like, I have to be on the other side of this. I should be a buyer and not a seller. And my brother was graduating college at the time, and he wanted to do renovations. And, so we were in the same line of business. I have an older brother who's an architect, and he later joined us. But at that time, it was scary knowing that, because a friend of mine brought it to my attention. He said, Chris, if you quit your job, are you ever going to have another job for the rest of your life? It made me think. And I was like, I don't think so. I think if I quit my job and I do go out on my own, I don't think I'm ever going to work for anybody else. And that was kind of scary, because up to that point, I really enjoyed, learning from other people and working for different real estate guys. And at that point, I realized that was going to be it. I was going to have to be completely on my own. And as scary as it was, I think it was the best decision I ever made. Took a huge pay cut. I was hardly making anything once I quit. I was putting all the money back into the business, but we were moving quickly. We were purchasing at least one house a month. And it's really what got us to where we were today is staying focused and spending all of our time on our own business.
Chris, talk about some of the strategies that you use when you are facing difficult decisions.
I guess the strategy really is you have to make quick decisions. You can't sit on things for too long. If something comes along, you have to make a quick decision, whether it's, hiring people, firing people, investing in properties. There's plenty of properties that we purchased. And, I've had other people tell me, oh, we were analyzing that. I sent it to my CFO and he's looking it over and but you guys were quick. And it's like, you have to make very quick decisions. So it's like, in anything, you rip off the Band-Aid very quickly and get it done. If you made the wrong decision, then, you can maybe change it later on. But I think the most important thing is making the decisions quickly.
All right, we're going to take a quick break to hear from one of our show sponsors. When we come back, we'll talk to Chris about some of his favorites as it relates to his life as an entrepreneur.
Have you ever thought about investing in real estate, but find yourself so busy that you don't have time for it? Do you have FOMO, which is the fear of missing out? At HanfordCapital.com, we help investors with passive real estate investments that project better returns than traditional investment vehicles such as the stock market. If you'd like to find out more about our passive real estate investments, visit HanfordCapital.com. That's HANDFORD Capital.com. We will jump on a call with you to discuss your investment goals and to see if our investments are a good fit for you. This advertisement is not to be construed as an offer or recommendation to buy or sell a security. Visit HanfordCapital.com. And we are back with Chris Lombardi. I want you to talk to us in this series of quick questions and answers that we call the trifecta, and start us off with this about your most favorite technology that you use in business that helps make your life easier every day as an entrepreneur.
That's definitely my computer. I couldn't do anything without my computer. I look up properties. I look up owners of properties. I have my spreadsheets with all the data that I collect. I use it to put together contracts. But yeah, without my computer, I couldn't. Oh, my software for property management is online. So without it, I couldn't get anywhere.
What's a favorite quote that you've heard that has helped you as an entrepreneur?
I've always been a big fan of Sam Zell. He's one of the biggest real estate guys out there. And I love listening to him. I love reading anything he comes out with. And one thing he always says is, if everyone is going left, look right. And I think it's important to be a contrarian. Whenever, in 2008, when the market collapsed, I remember, 2010, when I quit my job, I remember I was telling people I was a real estate developer. And I always got the same thing. I always heard from people that, I'm sorry to hear that. You must be going through a tough time right now. And it made me realize, every time I heard that, it made me realize that I was doing the right thing, because everyone at that time thought you want to stay as far away from real estate as you could get. And in 2010, 2011, that's when you wanted to jump all in. So when everyone's looking left, I try to look right.
And what's a favorite book that you've read that helps you make better decisions as an entrepreneur?
Like I said, I'm a huge fan of Sam Zell. He recently came out with a book called Am I Being Too Subtle? And it's a great book. It goes through his entire business career, his entire life, really. And he talks about how he's gotten started and how he manages his businesses. And it's a real eye-opener, especially for real estate investors.
What's the next thing for you, Chris, on your vision or your dream board?
To me, I'm not a flashy guy. I don't, need the fancy cars or big house or anything like that. I really just love real estate, and everything that we make, we put back into the business. And I'm really looking forward to getting into much bigger properties. We still do a lot of single family houses. We still do a lot of small multifamily, but I'm looking to get into the larger multifamily deals.
Well, great. Well, then how can the listeners reach out to you if they want to follow you or maybe contact you and ask you some more follow-up questions after they listen to this episode?
I'm very active on LinkedIn. They can look me up on LinkedIn. I'm on Bigger Pockets, or you can reach me on my phone at 732-630-1000, or email me at chris@lombardiresidential.com.
Great. Well, thank you so much for taking some time out of your schedule to be with us today, Chris. Look forward to continue to follow you as you continue to build your portfolio, and also having you on a future episode as you continue to grow.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Tough Decisions Network. Be sure to visit toughdecisions.net to gain access to show notes for this episode and to join our free weekly entrepreneur email, where we will send you news about the latest technology for your business, inspiring quotes, and the latest books for entrepreneurs. That's toughdecisions.net.